الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين نحمده ونشكره ونستعينه ونستغفره ونتوب إليه من سيئات أعمالنا ثم الصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى آله الطاهرين المعصومين المنتجبين اللهم
صل على محمد وآل محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم.
السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار، ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي ابن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. Sisters and brothers, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
عليكم السلام ورحمة الله.
قال الإمام الحسين عليه الصلاة والسلام في ليلة عاشوراء مخاطبا أصحابه: أما بعد فإني لا أعلم أصحابا أولى ولا خيرا من أصحابي، ولا أهل بيت أبر ولا أوصل من أهل بيتي، فجزاكم الله عني جميعا خيرا، وإني أظن يومنا من هؤلاء الأعداء غدا. ألا وإني قد رأيت لكم فانطلقوا جميعا في حل ليس عليكم مني ذمام. هذا ليل قد غشيكم فاتخذوه جملا. On the night of Ashura, year 61 after Hijrah, two things happened that is worthy of discussing. We may not be able to do it today or tonight. We'll do it inshallah tomorrow night. Number one, the army of Ibn Sa'd decided to attack in the afternoon on the 9th. Imam sends his brother Abu al-Fadl to ask alayhi salatu wasalam to go and ask them to hold, as they say, hold their horses for tonight. Let us spend the night in prayer and worship, and then we see what happens tomorrow. Late at night, on the one hand, he turned the lights off, or candles, whatever they had in the tents, off, and delivered a sermon to ashab, to those who were present. And this is part of that sermon that is considered to be probably one of the most important sermons delivered on the night of Ashura. Indeed, I know no other group of disciples better or superior than my own disciples, my ashab. And no close family more pure than mine. May Allah reward you all kindly. I believe our days with these enemies has arrived, and it is tomorrow. I have removed all obligations from you, and you are at liberty to take the darkness of the night as a cover and go. Twice, Imam Hussein salawatullah salam alayhi gives the opportunity, last night I mentioned, gives the opportunity to the Sahaba, to those who are with him, literally to sieve through them to see who's going to be remaining and who's shaky in their behavior, and separate them. One was when the news of the martyrdom of Muslim ibn Aqil came on one of the stations between Mecca and Karbala, and Imam again first time delivered a sermon similar to this, telling the people that you are at liberty to go. It seems they are after me. Some people did. On the night of Ashura, again, the same or similar sermon was delivered, and again some group of people, few individuals, left at night. Imam gives them, says that yes, you had bay'ah or swore allegiance, so on, to stay with me. It appears that tomorrow is the final day, and those of you who do not want to be killed, you can go. Take the night as a cover and go. And I remove the bay'ah for you. The way Sahaba reacted, those who stayed, you can go to books of Maqtal and the history of Ashura, and you can read these statements. Those who left behind or stayed, they said that they are not going to go anywhere. They are not going to abandon the grandson of the Holy Prophet. How could they one day on the Day of Judgment answer the Holy Prophet, etc., etc. One of the Sahaba said, even if they kill me 1,000 times and I'm reborn again, I will go through the same thing. I'm not going to give up. The next thing that happened on that night was a meeting between Umar ibn Sa'd and Imam Hussein salawatullah salam alayhi, where they set a tent between, literally in the middle of the battle zone, neither in the quarter of Imam Hussein nor on the quarter of Ibn Sa'd, somewhere in the middle. And there was a meeting between Imam Hussein and Umar ibn Sa'd. I will discuss this later. But tonight, the presentation has three parts. First is to give some information about Kufa itself. We hear quite a lot that Kufa had become synonymous with treachery, deception, and betrayal, etc., etc. As soon as the name of Kufa was presented at the time, everybody said, oh, stay away from them. These people are not trustworthy, etc. What was so unique about Kufa that gave them such a characteristics? I have been, as a child of Iraq, I've been to Kufa many times, lived in it for, I'm sure, Abu Muhammad, you have. So we are familiar of the socio-political history of Kufa. At the moment, Najaf and Kufa, they have expanded and they've literally connected with each other. You can literally walk or drive from Nahr al-Furat to the mausoleum of Amir al-Mu'mineen on the street, and all the streets are connected. During my times, it was just desert. There was nothing else. Najaf with Hannana finished, and then you had to go back into the desert, and then you got to Kufa, close to Maytham's burial site. So this was, now they are all connected. So what is so unique about Kufa, alaykum salam, that has given it such a bad reputation? This is one part of the presentation tonight. The second part of the presentation, I would like to go back to the point that I raised regarding the philosophy of the uprising of Imam Hussein, and if all of these individualistic approach to the philosophy of uprising, whether it is Amr bil Ma'ruf by itself, or whether it's Islah by itself, or whether it's claimed that somehow the uprising is for Shafa'ah and for washing of our sins, or some special order and command to the Holy Imam, they are not going to satisfy the rationale that we need as an uprising that stays with the universal message. So we need to wrap it up and say, okay, what's the solution? How can we answer it? And ultimately go back to this notion, special meeting with Ibn Sa'd, as well as that sermons that Imam Hussein salawatullah salam alayhi delivered, and how you can then use the unique characteristics of Kufa as a segue into the reaction that the army of Umar ibn Sa'd had vis-a-vis the Imam. There is a khutbah Imam Hussein salawatullah salam alayhi on the day of Ashura that inshallah tomorrow night I will talk about it. A scathing attack on people of Kufa and those who came to be with Umar ibn Sa'd against Imam Hussein. Let's go back to Kufa itself. The city of Kufa was built year 17 after Hijrah, during the reign of Umar. By whom? Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas, the father of Umar ibn Sa'd. After the battle with Iran and the end of the battle, the notion that the army could go back to Medina and then start again, travel for a long distance if they wanted to expand or go eastwards, was dispensed with, and Umar commanded Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas to build a city close to the river where it has all the benefit of water, greenery, and so on, that could become a place where people could congregate, and the army, so it became a battalion city, a city where army primarily resided. Naturally, because the city was what we call the place for distribution of spoils and loots, it attracted huge amount of people coming from other parts of the Muslim world to Kufa. Before Muslims took over, it was under the political authority of the Iranians, the Sassanid dynasty, for close to 1,000 years. As a consequence, huge number of Persians settled in that area, because that was part of the Persian Empire. So if we look what happens with the coming of the Muslim community from around the Islamic world, naturally, racially, two communities began to take shape. What they call the Arabs, and they defined them as Ajam or non-Arabs. The Arabs, primarily from Egypt, Mecca, Medina, and other parts, southern Iraq, and other parts, Yemen, and coming to live in Kufa. Because now the city is a vibrant city, and if there is an army, we need to go out, and spoils of the war to be taken will be distributed within the city. So it became an economic center as well. The non-Arabs, primarily with the Iranians, Romans, a small group of Romans, Turks, and small other group of people. Iranian, also we call Persians, constituted a sizable minority within the city. Kufa, because it was far away from Medina and Mecca, became what we call today in the economic sense a tax haven. The Sahaba, the new bourgeoisie Sahaba that managed to use the position of being Sahaba to collect huge amount of wealth, such as Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas himself and others. They couldn't spend or invest the money in Medina and be public in front of everybody else. They searched for a place far away that they could invest the money. There were no banks or anything. In what? In properties. So they all purchased huge amount of lands, slaves, and basatin, and everything else around Kufa. Kufa began to develop. They say that Kufa, on the year 17 after Hijrah, it had close to 30,000 individuals. By the year 50 after Hijrah, close to 20 some years after, 30,000 had developed to 150,000 people now settled. Huge number of people coming in. But the worst part was the bourgeoisie, rich Sahabas, used it as a place to buy land and keep stocks and everything else. As far as religious configuration in Kufa, that played a major role in their reaction to whether Amir al-Mu'mineen salawatullah wasalam alayhi, or whether Imam Hassan or Imam Hussein in particular, there were three different major groups of people operating in Kufa. Number one, the Shias. Unfortunately, the Shias, these are what we call Shia by name, or Shia not ideologically Shia, that they understood the concept of Imamah and they were prepared to work with the Imam. On the paper, they were Shias. Yes, they prayed. They considered Ali to be better than Muawiyah. But the idea that when Ali commanded them that you have to do something sam'an wa ta'an, no, there wasn't. This is why after the coming back from Battle of Siffin, going back to Kufa, Imam said the cancerous cell of Muawiyah has to be dealt with, so we need to go and finish him off. So he commanded the Kufa to get up and organize itself. Let's go and finish the battle. They all dilly-dallied, as they say, to the point that Amir al-Mu'mineen says, I wish Muawiyah exchanges one of his followers and takes 10 of you away. Why? باجتماعهم على باطلهم وتفرقكم عن حقكم. You know I'm right. I'm your leader. I command you, let's go. When the weather is hot, they say, oh, wait until the weather gets cold. When it's a little bit cold, no, we went for the spring when the weather gets nice. When Muawiyah commands his followers, sam'an wa ta'a, they come. This is the concept of wahda and unity within the society. That Imam says, you filled my heart with pus, which means qarh. I wish Muawiyah comes and takes 10 of you and gives me one of his followers. Why? Because of the unique dynamic that existed. So Shia, they were relatively in majority, but they were not ideologically adherent to Imamah, the concept of Imamah that they understood. Yeah, Ali is better than Muawiyah, and so on. We see the same kind of rebellious nature when Imam Hassan says, let's go and finish Muawiyah. They don't want to go. They write letters to Imam Hussein. According to historians, between 80 to 120,000, they sign it. But when Imam says, okay, I'm here, nobody wants to know. Muslim ibn Aqil sends a letter to Imam Hussein that the Kufa has already swore allegiance and done bay'ah for you to come. One night goes to the mosque, starts Maghrib and Isha prayer with 4,000 people behind him, and then says, Assalamu alaikum salat al-Isha, looks around, nobody around. They all vanished. I saw this, I don't think any of if you are old enough to remember, in 1970, when Saddam put Marhum Sayyid al-Hakim under house arrest. And a number of junior students from Najaf, including myself, we decided to go to Kufa and start a rally and then walk to the house of Ayatollah Hakim, which was close to the Euphrates. When we walked into the mosque, there were at least close to 1,000 people ready to help us. From Bab al-Qibla, the main entrance, first police officer that walked out, it reminded me of the story of Muslim. They all ran away from the Muslim side, and only the mashayikh, junior students and so on, stayed in the middle. Not only they ran away, they went out and they joined the police to beat us up. And we reflected, I mean, we discussed this between the students when we got back to Najaf. I said, okay, what does this tell us? Is this inherent in nature of people of Kufa? They run away. I mean, I saw them running away from Muslim sides. How many of you have gone to Najaf or to Kufa that you remember the shape of the mausoleum? You have Masjid al-Kufa. On the other side is Mausoleum of Muslim ibn Aqil, and Hani and others. Now, the Iranian government has developed an excellent design and so on, which is there. So you have this main entrance that you walk in from here. During my times, the ground of Masjid al-Kufa was sand. I prefer that one than this granite that the Khoja community and what is it called, the Bohras, they have put a huge amount of money and turned the ground into granite. The sand was much softer and not too hot during summer. Now, the granite with the heat of Najaf and the summer, 50 degrees centigrade, the granite becomes like fire. So you walked in from here, whole ground was sand. Shortly walked into the first face of the shortly, or the police officer walks in, and the whole people run away. Make a U-turn and join the police and come back. People now say it's inherent within the nature of people of Kufa. At least we can go back to the time of Ahlul Bayt. It was this unique dynamic that existed in the social fabric of the society. On the one hand, you had the Shia that primarily are not ideologically strong on name. Then you had Al-Hizb al-Amawi. These are people that supported Bani Umayyah. We call them Uthmanis or Bani Umayyah, to the hilt. These were the people that every time Amir al-Mu'mineen wanted to organize anything, they stood up against it. And they were primarily the upper class within the Kufa society because they had money. Either representing the Sahabas that they were rich in Medina, or they themselves had money and they came to live in Kufa because it was a unique place. If somebody, those days, as I remember as a student, if somebody could afford even a small house close to the river, during summer, it was like Jannah, because Najaf, you turn a frying pan upside down and put it in front of the sun, within 2 minutes crack an egg on it, and you have fried egg. We tested that. A few days ago, last week, somebody sent me a report that Kuwait, southern Iran, has a temperature, they witness a temperature between 60 to 67 degrees centigrade, which is close to 157 degrees Fahrenheit. Even the animals can't tolerate it. So if somebody would like, Hawza would come to a close during summer. The only time we had discussion was very early in the morning, before Salat al-Subh, or late at night after Salat al-Maghrib and Isha, which was tolerable. So the rich from other parts of the Muslim world came to Kufa to establish themselves, basatin, and live comfortably. These people were a sizable minority within the Kufa society as well. And they never worked with the Shias, they constantly worked against the Shias. These are the ones that worked with Ibn Ziyad to kill Muslim ibn Aqil and anybody that was part of the Shia community. The third category, or social group, or racial group, or call it religious group, were the Khawarij. After they were defeated in the Battle of Nahrawan, they came and stayed in Kufa and establish a base for themselves. If you look at khutab and sermons of Amir al-Mu'mineen salawatullah salam alayhi, their presence are well known within these sermons. They stand up and they say he's kafir. So their presence caused huge amount of problem. So what we can collect or conclude from this unique cosmology is that Shia in Kufa was not all Shia. There was a sizable Shia majority, but they were not strong in faith. And this is why what we have, the treachery and the betrayal and the deception of changing ideas, etc., etc. Always some kind of a clash between the Shias, Hizb al-Amawi and Khawarij on the other side. And Imam Hussein salawatullah salam alayhi, in a khutbah that delivers on day of Ashura, points to this reality, that you people, the power that we Ahlul Bayt gave you to use it against our enemy, that power is now being used against us. The sword that we gave you to use it against our enemy, you are using it against us. That clearly stated the disunity that exists within the Muslim community. The Shias, even if they were considered to be Shias, they were Shias by name. Now, let's go to the wrapping up of various opinions that we have regarding philosophy and rationale of uprising. I said that the view of Imam Hussein being killed to forgive our sins, it's false view that doesn't make sense. People who have supported this view don't understand the concept of Shafa'ah and really have no clue who Imam Hussein was and the character of Imam Hussein. The view that says the uprising of Imam Hussein primarily to grab power that is prompted by the Sunni community. If you look at Ibn Kathir, Tabari and others, they constantly say that it was done for grabbing power and it was a rash decision, etc., etc. Again, that doesn't make sense. Because Imam repeatedly says that I'm not for grabbing power. It was a different thing. There are those who say that Imam had a unique command to be martyred. Shaykh Yusuf ibn Ahmad al-Bahrani, in a book called Ad-Durar al-Najafiyya, is primarily among the early scholars that talks about this. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala somehow grant these in the A'imma, everyone has a unique letter in his hand that has to open it at the right time. And then when you open that letter, whatever is in that letter you have to follow. So your destiny is written down. Immediately the fallacy of this argument becomes clear. They say that each Imam needs to open this letter and act according to the instruction. For Imam Hussein, when he opened it, this is the sentence: قاتل فاقتل وتقتل واخرج بأقوام للشهادة لأنه لا شهادة معهم إلا منك. A short command. Get out, rise, fight, you will be killed. There will be other people with you, that their shahada and martyrdom cannot be achieved unless they come with you in this path. Again, this I mentioned last night, if it's a unique command and unique instruction for Imam Hussein, it removes the concept of universal message from Ashura, and it doesn't become a role model for us to follow. The other view is of a special responsibility. صاحب جواهر الكلام, Shaykh Muhammad Hussein al-Najafi, this is his sentence: وما وقع من الحسين عليه الصلاة والسلام مع أنه من الأسرار. It's a mystery. We don't know anything about it. من الأسرار الربانية والعلم المخزون يمكن أن يكون لانحصار الطريق في ذلك على أنه تكليف خاص لحسين بن علي. A special command. So all of these, as a matter of norm, any atomistic, singular approach to an analysis of philosophy of Ashura does not make sense. We really need to understand the Imam, understand the concept of Imamah, understand the knowledge of the Imam, and understand the depth and width of the responsibility of the Imam, and then come up to analyze the philosophy and rationality of uprising. It is various khutbah of Imam clearly states that all of these that we see it in the slogans of Ashura existing in the uprising of Imam. Islah, also Ihya Madahir al-Din, to stand to atrocities and injustice, to create the right base for the security of everyone to be able to express themselves. So just to wrap up, this kind of philosophy is the one that most scholars, contemporary scholars, are moving towards. It's this view that can bring all of the slogans together and makes a reasonable, rational, preserving the universal value of Ashura and so on. Now we go to the khutbah or the meeting between Imam Hussein salawatullah salam alayhi and Ibn Sa'd. In the meeting, Ibn Sa'd brought with him 20 people. They put a tent. 2 people, his son Hafsa and his slave, walked in. And Imam Hussein salawatullah salam alayhi brought 20 people and 2 people with him, Ali al-Akbar and Abbas. They walked inside. And Imam starts the conversation with Umar ibn Sa'd. وَيْلَكْ يَا ibn Sa'd, أَمَا تَتَّقِ اللَّهِ. May you be cursed, O son of Sa'd. Remember, Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas is the one that actually built Kufa. So he is in his own territory. أَمَا تَتَّقِ اللَّهِ الَّذِي إِلَيْكَ مَعَادُهُ. Ultimately, you have to go back to Allah, the day of judgment. أَتُقَاتِلُنِي وَأَنَا ابْنُ مَنْ عَلِمْتُ. You are fighting me and you know who I am. This is where Shaykh Sadr finds it very difficult. He said, I've never seen a society so openly living in paradox. I know who he is, the grandson of the Holy Prophet, and yet I stand up to kill him. On the day of Ashura, these people stood up to kill Imam Hussein qurbatan ila Allah. You can't have maskh better than this. Islam being deformed and devoid of its value more than this. أَتُقَاتِلُنِي وَأَنَا ابْنُ مَنْ عَلِمْتُ. Now Imam puts the pressure on him, psychological. ذَرْ هَؤُلَاءَ الْقَوْمِ وَكُنْ مَعِي. Leave them, come with me. فَإِنَّهُ أَقْرَبُ لَكَ إِلَى اللَّهِ تَعَالَى. If you want a good deed, stay with me, not with these people. What did he say? I'm afraid that they would take my houses and my wealth and everything else that I have in Kufa. Imam says, if you are afraid of they destroy your houses, أَنَا أَبْنِي عَلَيْكَ. I will, if, just imagine, the biggest revolution could have happened, public relation revolution, if Umar ibn Sa'd could have been persuaded to go with Imam Hussein. أنا أبنيها لك وأخلف لك خيرا منها من مالي بالحجاز. Not only I build your houses, anything that they take away, I give you from my own wealth. Tried in vain. He said, I cannot leave Mulk al-Ray. Alaykum salam. Mulk al-Ray is a blind spot for him. That he can kill the grandson of the Holy Prophet for the promise of the Mulk of Ray, which is on the western side of Iran now, or Persia, to be given to him, and he becomes Amir or governor in charge. And Imam stands up and curses him. ذبحك الله على فراشك عاجلا ولا غفر لك يوم حشرك. Soon you will be killed on your bed, and on the day of judgment you will not be forgiven. فوالله لا أرجو إني أرجو أن لا تأكل من بر العراق إلا يسير. If you are thinking that you will be given the governorship of Iraq or Iran and you will benefit from the wealth, you will not get anything out of it but just small amount. What did he say? في الشعير كفاية من البر. Just imagine how deformed the mind is. You are confronted by the grandson of the Holy Prophet, tries to convince you, come with me and I secure the dunya and akhirah for you. Then they departed. But what did they do next? Imam went to the tent, recited that khutbah, فَإِنِّي لَا أَعْلَمُ أَصْحَابًا أَوْلَى وَلَا خَيْرًا مِنْ أَصْحَابِي. You are the best. And once he realized that apart from few who left, everybody else is going to stay, they spend the night praying and reciting Quran and worship. Historian says there was a buzz in the tent of Ahlul Bayt during that night. Light was on till the morning, nobody slept. They were congratulating each other. Why? Because it's only a matter of hours for this bridge, threshold, to be passed. Inshallah, I will continue with the conversation tomorrow night, since we don't have any meeting in the afternoon, and I will focus on this particular part of how can a society become so deformed that can live in such a profound contradiction while calling themselves Muslims, yet they are ready to go and slaughter and massacre Ahlul Bayt. This is a challenge to all of us, a lesson. Mahram Mutahari used to say, if we really want to learn one message out of Ashura, it's this contradiction, to be watchful that dunya doesn't take over our mindset to the point that adhering to the principle becomes irrelevant for the sake of dunya. As Imam Hussein says, النَّاسُ عَبِيدُ الدُّنْيَا, slave to the material world. وَالدِّينُ لَعِقٌ عَلَىٰ أَلْسِنَتِهِمْ, they accept faith so long as deen does not intrude in the personal space. We have created our own lifestyle. If deen stays away from that lifestyle, it's fine. But as soon as deen comes into the lifestyle, it's not acceptable. That's exactly what happened in Kufa and in other places. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us from the challenges that we are going to face in this world, and particularly I'm worried about our children. At least I have said this, all of us here, we have some background information, something experience that we can tap into and protect ourselves, even to a degree. But our children, they are in this unique world that's full of shar and evilness. For them to be able to survive, we really need to work extremely hard. Please join me in reciting Amman Yujib. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. This is Laylatul Jum'ah. Please recite Amman Yujib and pray for those who are ill, sick, as well as our own deceased and departed. أمن يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء 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 أمن يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء. اللهم إنا نسألك وندعوك بفاطمة وأبوها وبعلها وبنوها أن تفرج عنا فرجا عاجلا قريبا يا الله. اللهم اشف مرضانا ومرضى المؤمنين واغفر أمواتنا واقض حوائجنا واجعلنا من المتمسكين بولاية أهل البيت عليهم السلام إن شاء الله. وعجل في فرج مولانا صاحب الزمان بالنبي وآله. نهدي للجميع ثواب سورة الفاتحة قبلها الصلاة على محمد وآل محمد.